Yo, what is up, everybody? It's Great. Welcome back to another Naruto reaction video here today. And today we got yet another requested video by you guys. And as you can tell by the title, that is Pain versus Might Guy. All right, now this is a very interesting matchup to me personally. On one side, we got a top 3 Akatsuki member, Pain. All right, so he has all of the Rinnegan abilities from Shino Tensei, Chibaku Tensei, Soul Possession, Mind Reading, animal summoning, all that stuff, all that good stuff. He's a powerful, powerful individual. On the other side, we got the Taijutsu god himself, Might Guy. All right, so he has the ability to open every gate all the way to the 8th gate of death. All right, so the real X factor here is obviously going to be the 8th gate, which was, able to severely injure Madara. Once he already was a 6th passive sage. He was already, a god tier shinobi, and Might Guy hurt him. Didn't kill him, but he hurt him. And yes, he had help. But the thing is, that's an X factor that I'm interested in. I'm interested in hearing Swag talk about. All right, so he's gonna dive into that matchup. But before we begin, any love's really appreciated. Hit that like button, turn on bell notifications, stay up to date with yours truly. And if you're new and you enjoy, this is your first time here, and you mess with the kid, please hit that sub button, man. Because once you do, you're part of the family forever, and it is growing. And I love you all for that. And I'm gonna keep saying that in every goddamn video. But let's get straight to the video here. Screen. Let's see this interesting matchup.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Swagkage here.
What up, man?
Welcome to today's video, where, as the thumbnail and title should have already told you, we're going to be talking about Guy versus Pain. Now, some of you may be wondering why I'm covering this matchup in particular, and, well, people usually have 2 major problems with my versus battle videos, and the first is that a lot of them focus on Uchiha characters fighting either non-Uchiha characters or other Uchiha characters. And since I've
Uchihas are really cool, I get it.
That guy in the Naruto community who regularly deep throats the Uchiha, I can understand why people have gotten tired of me constantly talking about them fighting other people. The second thing people typically criticize me for is that when I make a versus battle video, I and the person I'm talking to tend to show pretty clear favoritism towards one combatant and will be a little more dismissive than we should of whoever they're fighting. But, while I haven't gotten many requests for this fight, not only does this battle not involve any Uchiha, it's also a pretty tricky one to cover. So I'm gonna have to talk about both fighters from a lot of angles in order to do it properly. The rules for the fight are going to be simple. It's like Sage Naruto versus Pain, except Naruto is replaced with Guy. That's to say that Guy is in Naruto's position when he fought Pain, only he doesn't have Ma and Pa there to help him. Instead, he only has Katsuyu by his side, feeding him intel the same way she fed it to Naruto. Pain will have little to no intel on Guy outside of what Kisame has presumably told him about him. This means that Pain will know what Guy is capable of when using up to the 6th gate, but everything beyond that will be completely new to him. I would love to talk about what would happen if Guy was in Jiraiya's place and fought Pain in the Rain Village, but that would be very interesting as well. Because Guy might not even end up fighting all 6 paths, and if he does, he'll probably get caught off guard the same way Jiraiya does, and I really don't know if I could see him coming out on top there. It's just a lot easier to come to a conclusion when using the circumstances that I've already outlined, so without further ado, let's just jump right into the analysis. The first person I'm going to be taking a look at is Guy, because he's a lot easier to break down than Pain is. Now, before I proceed, let me make it clear, I'm going to be analyzing Guy's abilities when using the 7th gate and the 8th gate. And the reason for this is because the 6th gate and below are not going to help him fight Pain.
I agree. He'd lose
only enough for Guy to take out a 30% power clone of Kisame, and I think it goes without saying that that is nowhere near the level that Pain is at. If Guy intends to win here, he has to start from at least gate 7. Now, obviously, I have a question to answer, and that is, how strong is Guy when he opens the 7th gate? Well, it's a little bit hard to say because he hasn't used it on many occasions. And even in the rare cases where he has decided to use Gate 7, it's been very difficult to tell just how strong he is with it open. I'll start with his speed because that's the easiest thing to cover here. 7th Gate Guy is one of the fastest characters in the series, and that is a fact. The main piece of evidence I'm going to use to prove this is Gaara's reaction to seeing Guy fight Madara. Gaara doesn't just say, wow, Guy is really fast or anything like that. He specifically says that Guy's movements are inhuman. Now, I brought brought this up in versus battle videos in the past, but in case you haven't heard me mention this before, keep in mind that Gaara has fought alongside Naruto, who, when using Sage Mode, was capable of reacting to and dodging an attack from the 3rd Raikage, and when using his Kyuubi Chakra Mode, was capable of avoiding a full speed attack from the 4th Raikage. And while you could say that the Naruto Gaara was fighting alongside was weakened because it was only a shadow clone, it wasn't Naruto's actual body, Gaara has also fought alongside the 4th Raikage A. It's also worth pointing out that in the fight I'm talking about, the 5 Kage versus Madara, A had his speed increased by Onoki's lightweight boulder jutsu, and now I don't know how much faster this made him, but Madara seemed pretty comfortable with dealing with the Raikage's base speed, but he was clearly really surprised with the results of Onoki amping it. Now, this isn't definitive proof that Guy is faster than Naruto or the Raikage, but it is enough for you to make a pretty good argument that he is. At the very least,
that's fair.
Relative to them, or in the same league as them, meaning that it's just really hard to argue that any of the Paths of Pain would be fast enough to keep up with him. Now, as for his attack power, this is a lot less clear-cut because you don't have a whole lot of statements to draw from. But Guy's feats concerning attack potency in the 7th gate are pretty crazy. As a matter of fact, he has some pretty incredible 6th gate feats as well. The craziest thing Guy has done while in the 6th gate is use a Swagkage to stun one of the tailed beasts, Saiken, the 6 tails. And now it's really scary to imagine just how strong Guy is with the 7th gate open, considering the enormous difference in attack potency that exists between the 6th and 7th, which, let me remind you, is so large that 6th gate Guy was just able to deal with 30% of Kisame's strength, whereas 7th gate Guy was able to soundly defeat a full power Kisame while holding back in order to prevent himself from killing him. That's one thing that many people seem to gloss over.
It's very impressive.
About how strong
and a clear boost in power. Clear boost.
Yeah, like I said, Guy didn't want to kill Kisame as he wanted to be able to interrogate him after the battle. And speaking of Guy's battle with Kisame, I haven't even mentioned the Hirudora yet. Guy was able to stun one of the tailed beasts with a Swagkage, which is a great deal weaker than the Hirudora is. With all of this in mind, you could potentially argue that with the Gate of Wonder open, Guy borders on being tailed beast level in strength. Now, while it sounds ridiculous, it's not an incredibly far-fetched claim to make, as the Hirudora creates an explosion so large that it makes Turtle Island look tiny by comparison. Guy was also able to knock a Susanoo-clad Madara back with it, which is extremely impressive, as Madara was surprised by the fact that Tsunade was capable of breaking through his ribcage. Granted, Guy didn't shatter Madara's humanoid Susanoo, but I mean, this panel is way too awesome for me to ignore. I'm not entirely sure how well it speaks to Guy's capabilities, but it looks really, really cool to say the very least. As for his stamina and durability, both of these are incredibly high. Guy was able to use the Swagkage and Hirudora back-to-back when fighting Kisame and showed negligible signs of strain, meaning that using the 8 gates, up to the 7th at least, and the techniques that come with opening them, doesn't seem to have too many negative effects on him. There aren't a whole lot of instances throughout the series that show off his durability, but the best one I can think of is the time that he tanked the explosion created by launching a Hirudora point-blank into Madara's face with, like, borderline no injuries at all. This is the same attack that nearly killed Kisame while Guy was holding back. The same guy that survived having his chest literally ripped open by B, and the only things that really ended up happening to him was he got knocked unconscious for a couple seconds, but after he woke up, he just said, oh yeah, my ribs hurt a little bit, and my arm does too, but other than that, I'm fine. Now, obviously, Guy isn't invincible, and he can't use all of the gates up to the 7th indefinitely, otherwise he would just walk around with the 7th gate open all the time. Or more realistically, he would always jump straight to the Gate of Wonder instead of opening the Gate of Joy first like he has on multiple occasions. But I can imagine that it takes a lot for him to run out of stamina. He'll certainly be able to use the 7th gate for longer than Naruto was able to use Sage Mode, though I don't know how the boost that the 7th gate gives him compares to the boost Naruto received from Sage Mode. Anyway, now let's move on and analyze Guy's abilities in the 8th gate. I almost think that this portion isn't really necessary because Guy's feats in the 8th gate speak for themselves. Now, I know I said this battle didn't involve any Uchiha, but Unfortunately, I am gonna have to mention an Uchiha now in order to communicate how strong Guy with the 8th gate open is. I'm sorry, I understand. I'm sure plenty of
That's all
people are
good.
really upset right now, but it has to be done. So, after opening the 8th gate, which took significantly less time in the manga than the anime, by the way, I've seen many people discuss Guy versus Pain and say that Pain simply wouldn't let him open the 8th gate because it takes too much time, but no. No. The 8th gate took a couple of panels to burst open for Guy in the manga,
that is correct.
That was after he'd already punctured his heart. It takes no time at all for him to enter the state, so let's just make that clear from the get-go. Anyway, with the 8th gate open, Guy is an absolute monster, capable of damaging Madara with Sekizo, the Evening Elephant, a taijutsu technique that isn't anywhere close to his strongest attack. He was also able to, with what I presume is a basic punch, it may have been the Evening Elephant, punch Madara so hard that he broke through the truth-seeking orb barrier he had created around himself. When
That's
I
pretty
first
impressive.
saw this, I thought this was crazy, and that it propelled Guy into a whole new tier of overpowered, because the truth-seeking orb barriers are no joke. See, with a truth-seeking orb shield, Obito was able to deflect a Senjutsu-enhanced Tailed Beast Bomb, along with a Senjutsu-enhanced Susanoo arrow at the same time. Now, I know what many people's first response to this is, and that is, but wait, Swagkage, the truth-seeking orbs and anything that they are molded into nullify all ninjutsu, right? And that is true with the exception of Sage Jutsu or Senjutsu enhanced attacks. This looks really impressive at first until you realize that there are multiple versions of the truth-seeking orb barriers that Obito and Madara have used. The barrier that blocked the Susanoo arrow and Tailed Beast Bomb combination was one composed of all of Obito's truth-seeking orbs, meaning that it was significantly stronger than the barrier Madara created, which was only composed of 3. So, while it is still impressive that Guy broke through it, it's not as impressive as some people seem to think. I mean, there's really almost no point in covering that anyway, because I'm pretty sure that everybody can agree if Guy lands a single punch on any of the 6 paths of
they're
pain,
gone.
They're probably going to go down immediately.
Yes.
He's likely capable of one-shotting all of them, though the Diva Path might be an exception, and I'll get into that more when I talk about Pain's abilities. Now, like I said, the Evening Elephant was capable of damaging Madara, so I'm pretty sure that it goes without saying that one shot from any of these is definitely going to be more than enough to take out any of the paths of pain. The problem is Guy cannot use these endlessly because his stamina and durability with the 8th gate open decrease significantly. Just launching
and very
the
quickly,
Evening
yes.
Elephant barrage started breaking his bones, and the act of simply moving around with the 8th gate open causes him pain. I'm not sure how much pain, but he seems to think it's excruciating. So yeah, it's really hard for Guy to do anything in this state. Now, the point that I'm trying to get across by saying all of this is that I don't think Guy has an infinite amount of Evening Elephants that he can launch. Not to mention, he can only leave the 8th gate open for so long before dropping dead. In the manga, he only fought Madara for maybe 2 or 3 chapters before the effects of opening the 8th gate wore off. So he really doesn't have a whole lot of time to do anything against Pain in this state, but again, he also does not have an infinite number of Evening Elephants he can launch, and since we've established that his regular punches are not Susanoo arrow Tailed Beast Bomb combined level, it is possible to argue that maybe Pain could reflect one of Guy's basic punches with a Shinra Tensei. Again, I'll get more into that later when I talk about Pain's capabilities, but it's just worth keeping in mind that Guy does have limits with the 8th gate open. I don't want to wank him too heavily, but also I don't want to downplay him. If he were to charge up the
which is
Night
tough to
Guy
do.
and
Tough to
land
do.
it
I
on any
completely
of the
agree, and I
Pain,
completely
he would
understand.
dead immediately, and there's nothing they would be able to do about it.
Right.
Now, it's pretty safe to assume that Pain would not let Guy charge up the Night Guy the same way Madara did, but the anime caused that scene to last for a lot longer than it did in the manga, as in the manga, Guy only took a couple panels charging up his final attack, as opposed to the few minutes it took him in the anime. Anyway, a lot of what I'm talking about right now is really only relevant when speaking about it relative to Pain's own abilities, so let's start analyzing him next. But first, let me make a quick note. While I don't intend for my Pain analysis to take longer than my Guy analysis did, I will say right out of the gate that, like I mentioned earlier on in the video, explaining how strong Pain is is a lot more difficult than doing the same with Guy.
Right.
And that is because, unlike Guy, Pain does not rely on brute force. He relies on a very versatile moveset used in a very specific variety of ways. Now, for the sake of making sure this video isn't like 50 million hours long, I'm going to spend most of this time talking about the ways that Pain can counter Guy's abilities. Besides, I've already made a video about the Rinnegan, so if you want to know everything that Pain is capable of, you can just go watch that and then come back here when you're done. When analyzing Guy, I mentioned pretty much everything he has up his sleeve because he's probably going to want to use every single one of his techniques when going up against somebody like Pain. In Pain's case, the same cannot be said because a lot of his jutsu can only be used in particular situations and against particular enemies. For example, the Preda Path will be pretty much useless in this fight as he won't be able to absorb any of Guy's projectile attacks. And
correct. No
holding
ninjutsu.
Guy in place will be next to impossible because of how strong he is. Now, first off, the path that I think is going to give Guy the most trouble is the animal path, and this is because Guy has no way to deal with some of these summons. While Naruto was able to use Sage Mode to sense the locations of any of the animals that this path summoned, Guy won't be able to do the same thing, and that's incredibly problematic because of the chameleon. Now, I don't recall the chameleon being this fast when the 6 Paths of Pain used it, so maybe it's stronger when being used by single body Nagato or something, although that doesn't really make sense. But anyway, when Nagato used it against Naruto and B, it was fast enough to get behind B without him noticing. And now, I know I said in the Itachi versus B video, hey, B is fast, but he's not that fast, and what I meant wasn't that B is slow or whatever. He's incredibly fast. He's almost as fast as the Raikage as he needs to be for them to sync up with the dual lariat that they perform together. So B is still pretty fast, and the fact that this chameleon was able to nearly blitz him is pretty impressive. Granted, it was invisible, but Naruto is capable of sensing the locations of other people and things, even
that is correct.
In KCM and not Sage Mode. Anyway, I kind of got off track there. The point is, this chameleon can turn invisible and move really, really fast, and it will create problems for Guy. If he focuses too heavily on fighting the other Paths of Pain, he might get slept from behind by this chameleon, assuming, of course, he is in the 7th gate. Most of what I am going to be talking about is assuming that Guy is in the 7th gate. Once I start talking about Guy activating the 8th gate, I will make it clear. Another one of the animals that might give Guy some trouble is the drill-beaked bird that the animal...
Yeah, that's a dangerous summoning.
Allows him to fly, and Guy can't do that. And since he is a predominantly taijutsu based fighter, he doesn't have a whole lot of projectile attacks that can reach into the air. Now, obviously, Hirudora and a Sakujaku can be used from a distance. However, I don't know if Guy is capable of spamming Hirudora, and he might only be able to use it a set number of times before exhausting himself. The same also goes for a Sakujaku, though he might have to use it carefully. That being said, spamming it in order to damage the animal path while he is flying in the air atop this bird is really not a good idea. I would assume anyway.
All right, so before he gets too far into Pain, I want to give my thoughts as we're about halfway through this video. Now, my guy's interesting opponent versus Pain, right? Because these are his clear disadvantages. He has a time limit, right? It's safe to say the time limit with the 7th gate is higher than the one Naruto had in Sage Mode. But here's the difference. He doesn't have Shadow Clone Jutsu. He can't, gather energy, and it's just he has one opportunity, one shot. That's it. And it's clear that, in the gate, when he's in 7th gate, he's stronger, faster, he's deadly. But the problem is he just doesn't have ninjutsu, right? Which is an advantage in a way against the one path that absorbs ninjutsu. That guy won't be able to do anything against him. Now, we can kind of get a gauge of how strong he is because he defeated Kisame decisively, right? But Pain is on a whole nother level. All right, we need to get that. We need to state that he's on a whole nother level, and we just don't have a super tight grasp of how powerful 7th gate guy is. Now, we saw him do some things against Madara, like Swax stated. He was able to push back a Susanoo and things like that. And this is tough to grasp, all right? Now, Pain will definitely... He has no insight of Kisame past the 6th gate, which it was a smart thing for Swag to say. So he'll be. This is unknown territory to him, similar to how Sage Mode was unknown territory to Pain when he fought Naruto. Now, Guy would have to come into the battle in 7th gate for sure. All right, let's say he, instead of Naruto, it's him that enters the battle. Maybe someone, maybe he runs there, like kind of like when he was with Neji and all of them, and he runs there and he gets there in time before Naruto does, and he's the one that faces Pain. All right. Now Pain wouldn't know anything about him, like I said, and let's just assume it's just him, right? Let's say Rock Lee doesn't help him, Neji doesn't help him, none of them help him. It's just him. Okay, so we don't get too sidetracked here. Pain would see him by himself, not know much of him, besides what Kisame told him, and probably underestimate him, to be honest, because he doesn't know of him. And it's not even really underestimating him. It's more ignorance, because he doesn't know anything really of Guy, besides what Kisame probably has told him. That he would test him, probably. He would test him and probably send the weaker Pains after him. And the summoning pass would be a problem for sure, because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he can't sense anything. Like the chameleon, the rhino, the lizard, all of those would be a problem. The dogs, and he doesn't have any ninjutsu. Everyone else is not there to help him. It's just him. He might be forced to open the 8th gate, because he just won't be able to deal with all that. It's very tough to kind of put a gauge on a grasp, to kind of get a grasp of this matchup. I just don't see him how, unless he opens the 8th gate, how he would win. It's very, very tough to grasp. But if he opens the 8th gate, in my opinion, Pain would see that. And he's not dumb. He's very intelligent, very strategic. He'd probably send a weaker Pain after him and see how he obliterates it. He'd obliterate anything in his path, really. Since it's clear as day, Pain is not near the level Madara was when he fought, when my guy injured him in the 8 gates. I don't want to go too far right now. I'll let it continue. But so far, it's a very iffy battle. Let's just continue.
Maybe it'll end just fine for Guy. Who knows?
I'll touch up on it after.
Not to speak about Guy so much, since this is the Pain section and not the this is where they fight section. But I do think it is worth mentioning how Pain will implement these things in the fight. Next up, the Asura Path will be able to fire missiles and laser beams and all of its other crazy shit from a distance, which will be really good for cornering Guy and pinning him down so that the Diva Path can use one of its abilities, or so the Animal Path can use one of its summons against him, or so that the Preta or Human Path can get in really close and either extract his soul in the case of the Human Path, or absorb his chakra in the case of the Preta Path. Now, if Guy gets close enough to the Asura Path to touch it, it's fucked. Because if Sage Naruto was capable of one-shotting it, and Kakashi was capable of shutting it down with a Raikiri, a couple punches or kicks from 7th gate Guy is definitely
would break it, yes.
Damage. It might not fully destroy it, depending on how strong you think 7th gate Guy is.
Pretty strong.
If he
Pretty
gets
strong.
Close, considering how fast he is, he'll probably be able to take care of it very quickly. The Naraka Path won't be able to do shit against Guy. It will pretty much have to stay in the back away from him if it hopes to keep reviving the other paths of pain. And the Preta and Human paths are also going to be completely worthless here. They are only going to be able to attack Guy with the support of the Animal Path, the Asura Path, and the Diva Path, which brings me to the most important path of pain, the Diva Path. He is going to be really annoying for Guy to go up against, because Bansho Tenin and Shinra Tensei are bitches. Bansho Tenin is more of a problem here, because Guy might be off fighting one of the other paths of pain, and all of a sudden, the Diva Path can grab him with Bansho Tenin Universal Pull, and yank him away from wherever he's standing, pull him through the air, and into an attack launched by one of the other paths of pain. Worst case scenario, he can use Universal Pull to pull him into the clutches of the Human Path at which point Guy will have his soul extracted and die. Shinra
Yep.
Tensei is also a pretty big deal here, and now it's no joke, especially not its more powerful variants, like the one that was capable of blowing up all of Konoha, for instance, but even the basic lowest level Shinra Tensei was capable of reflecting a Rasen Shuriken. As a matter of fact, it didn't reflect it, it just outright destroyed it, caused it to disappear into nothing. Now, the effectiveness of Shinra Tensei depends on whether or not you think the Rasen Shuriken is stronger than Hirudora. Now, the Rasen Shuriken is really difficult to scale because I don't know if it attacks with brute force at all, or if it entirely relies on destroying whatever it touches on a cellular level. Because Nakazu was able to tank a tailed beast bomb, and yet after getting hit by a Rasen Shuriken, he died. Now, it's really easy to say, well, this means that the Rasen Shuriken is stronger than the tailed beast bomb, but I don't really know about that. Because again, that could be entirely due to the way the Rasen Shuriken works, and it doesn't necessarily mean that the tailed beast bomb is stronger. Not to mention, Kakazu tanked the tailed beast bomb from Maratabi, not one of the stronger Biju like Yuki or Kurama, so that's worth keeping in mind as well. Furthermore, while Shinra Tensei was able to protect Pain from the Rasen Shuriken, it wasn't able to do the same from a single blow from Six-Tailed version 2 Cloak Naruto. And this is where the whole does the Rasen Shuriken rely too heavily on brute force thing becomes relevant, because if you take this into consideration and you only look at this in terms of this thing is stronger than this, therefore meaning that this other thing must be stronger than that, that would make a single hit from Six-Tailed version 2 Cloak Naruto stronger than a Biju bomb from Maratabi. It would also mean that Six-Tailed version 2 Cloak Naruto is strong enough to one-shot Kakazu. So I think Pain using Shinra Tensei to deflect a Rasen Shuriken, while it is incredibly impressive, does not necessarily indicate that he is completely invincible as soon as he launches it. I also think it's really hard to argue that Six-Tailed version 2 Cloak Naruto hits harder with a basic punch than Guy does with the fucking Hirudora, so I don't think Shinra Tensei, at its lowest level anyway, will be enough to defend Pain here. He'll probably have to dodge it, and doing so will likely be very difficult because of how fast Guy punches and consequently how fast the Hirudora moves. Now, normally I would say that at the very least the Shinra Tensei would be enough to weaken the Hirudora, as it would absorb some of the force and leave Pain to take the rest, but I don't think that's necessarily true considering what happened when he tried to protect himself from Six-Tailed version 2 Cloak Naruto. Not only did Naruto completely resist the effects of the Shinra Tensei, he also used the recoil it created to shove Pain backwards into the air. This means that using Shinra Tensei to defend himself could potentially compound the damage dealt by the Hirudora, which, I mean, really, it's just not good at all. But, of course, I've gone this entire time without mentioning Chibaku Tensei, which, let's be real, Guy could do nothing about. I really can't see Nagato resorting to using Chibaku Tensei against Guy after only opening 7 of the 8 gates. I think he really wouldn't see him as enough of a threat to resort to that, but if he were to, there would be absolutely nothing Guy could do against Chibaku Tensei, and I don't want to hear otherwise.
That's fair.
Took B, Naruto, and Itachi all launching their strongest attacks to disrupt the Chibaku Tensei that Nagato launched against them. And so there's really no way Guy would be able to destroy it, no matter how many Hirudoras he sent after.
I agree.
I also
That's
think
fair.
that if Pain did launch Chibaku Tensei, Guy's only option would be either to open the 8th gate or lose. If he did not manage to open the 8th gate while he was being pulled to the center, he would lose as he would be paralyzed in the center of the Chibaku Tensei, and that would be that. Now, I really can't see Pain resorting to using this again because he'd want to save some strength for when he has to fight Naruto. He came to Konoha to capture the Nine Tails after all, but if he has to choose between losing all 6 paths of pain and exhausting some chakra to deal with Guy, he's going to choose the latter. I think that's pretty obvious. Now, alright, I think I've talked about the capabilities of both fighters for long enough, so now let's just answer the million-dollar question. Who would win in a fight between Pain and Might Guy? It's really tricky, and I mean, like, incredibly tricky. Even after all that I've went over, I really don't think I can come to a concise, accurate answer that I am fully confident in. But what I do think is going to happen is Guy is going to give Pain a lot of trouble. And while you might think that this is going to be for a lot of the same reasons Sage Naruto gave him trouble, they actually won't be as similar as many people may assume. Guy won't be able to catch Pain off guard the way Naruto did with Frog Kumite, the ability to use the air or just nature in general as an extension of one's melee attacks. Naruto pretty much destroyed the Prey path by using this to his advantage and catching Pain off guard entirely, and this is an advantage Guy will not have. Granted, he is capable of punching the air hard enough to weaponize it, but I think Pain will be a lot more prepared for a Guy doing it than he was for Naruto doing it. The other thing that sets Guy apart is he doesn't really have any lifting feats, so I'm not sure how well.
Yeah, I was thinking about that as well.
The animals summoned by the animals.
Could he lift them? Who knows? I don't think so. I don't know.
And chuck them away like it was nothing. I don't know if Guy is capable of doing the same thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I believe he can't, and there's no evidence to suggest he can, so I am going to
fair.
continue speaking under the assumption that he cannot. This will make all of the animals summoned by the animal path really, really, really difficult for Guy to overcome. Not only did Naruto have the strength to simply throw these guys the fuck away, he also had 3 gigantic summons of his own to fight them.
That is the point I made earlier. He doesn't have, Guy won't have those. Yes.
The only summon he has access to is his turtle, and that thing is getting fucking slaughtered by the gigantic animal.
That's facts.
Can summon. And again, the chameleon and especially the gigantic Cerberus are going to prove incredibly troublesome. The only way Naruto was able to get rid of this thing was by having Gemabunta smush it under his gigantic feet. And unless Guy is capable of using the expansion jutsu, and I'm just not aware of it, he won't be able to do the same thing here. The only way Guy will be able to get rid of these animals is by attacking the animal path directly and dispatching it, and that is going to be incredibly difficult for him to do with all 5 other paths of pain working against him. I can see him launching a Hirudora to take care of most of the summons and maybe even the animal path in the process, and if Katsuyu tells him that destroying the animal path will cause all of the other summons to disappear, well then that's probably the approach that he's going to take, but doing so will be incredibly difficult, like I said. Now obviously he won't be completely overwhelmed or overpowered by these animals, but if enough of them are summoned at once and they all charge at him, I can see him falling eventually. He was able to deal with multiple tailed beasts fighting him at the same time, but he had the support of Kakashi as well as Naruto and B. Here he would be completely alone, and I don't think that these summons are anywhere near as strong as tailed beasts, but with the other 5 paths of pain, along with all of these animals fighting him at once, it's really difficult to argue that Guy would be able to take them all out. Whether he wins the fight or not really depends on whether he can take the animal path out early. Next up on his list of priorities would likely be the Naraka path, as it's capable of reviving the others. This is where things would get really problematic, because the Naraka path could immediately revive the animal path if Guy isn't quick enough. And when I say quick enough, I mean like really quick. Now Guy's fast, don't get me wrong, he's in the same league as the Raikage and KCM Naruto, but I'm not sure if he'll be fast enough to catch the Naraka path before it revives the animal path. He might get stuck in an infinite loop here, and I can't see him reaching the Naraka path if he doesn't take out the animal path first, because the animals will all form a blockade in front of him. The other paths of pain will be able to set up some combo that leaves Guy helpless and ends up getting him fucking killed, something like that. But if he does manage to take out the animal path and is quick enough to reach the Naraka path with Katsuyu's advice, then it really won't be too much more difficult for him to take out the other 4. The Preta path and the human path will be complete and total pushovers, as will the Asura path, assuming he can get close to it, leaving him in a one-on-one battle with the Diva path. Now, I've made it very clear that getting to this point will be incredibly difficult for Guy. Because of that, I can't see his stamina holding out for long enough that he can fight the Diva path one-on-one in the 7th gate.
Yeah, that's very unlikely.
If he manages to take out all of the other paths of pain except for the Diva path, by the time he does, he wins. Now, I don't think it's very likely that Guy will actually be able to do that, though. Yeah, I think that some of the other paths of pain will still be left over when he realizes that the 7th gate isn't enough. I think he'll be completely drained of stamina, and he'll be like, look, I need to open up the 8th gate to give myself the energy I need to defeat this guy. Now, in this scenario, he likely wins as well, like 99%. I'm pretty sure that there's absolutely nothing that Pain can do about it. But no matter what happens, if he opens up the 8th gate, Nagato technically wins the battle because Guy didn't track him down, which therefore means Nagato's still alive, Guy isn't. Nagato wouldn't revive any of the villagers that he killed because Naruto wouldn't be there to talk no jutsu him. It'd honestly just be a lot worse than if Naruto fought him. So in conclusion, I believe that if Guy sticks to the 7th gate, he will most likely lose. He won't be able to overcome the sheer overwhelming might of all 6 paths of pain at once. But if he opens up the 8th gate, Pain gets stomped. You can argue that maybe Pain would survive, but you're like really reaching if you do. It's definitely wanking the fuck out of Pain and lowballing the fuck out of Guy. So yeah, that's what I think. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Anyway, hope you have a great rest of your day, and until my next video, I'll talk to you later. Swagkage out. Bye.
Great video. Great video. Very thought-provoking. All right, guys. There you guys have it. Now I have to give my 2 cents on this one. So I tried earlier. I wanted to hear what Swag had to say to further elaborate on my own, my own sense here, my own 2 cents. Now the 8th gate, it's ridiculously powerful. He's able, my guy's able to hurt God tier shinobi. All right, someone like the likes of Madara. So this battle, he'd open the 7th gate. And here's this as well. He doesn't know anything about Pain, so there's that also. That's disadvantage for him. Neither one of them know anything about each other. All right. Well, Katsuyu would be telling him things about him, so there's that as well. So that would help him, kind of like similar to Naruto. I got help from Katsuyu when he was fighting Pain. So there's that. So actually, I misspoke. He will have some insight on Pain, but in the 7th gate, I just don't see him beating Pain. Pain has numbers on the side, size on the side, right? There's so many paths. It's very, very unlikely that Guy would be able to lift something, heavy. I feel like it would have been shown somewhere in the anime if he was capable of that feat. So maybe lifting something heavy. I just never seen that. So there's that. I don't think he'd be able to lift it. I feel like Pain would get a gauge of what Guy's capable of quickly, and this is a difficult thing. The almighty push and pull that Pain possesses. The reason why Naruto was able to deal with it so well is because he has ninjutsu, he has shadow clones, he has these jutsus that Guy just doesn't have. Okay, so that's problematic. So if he would get caught in those jutsus, I don't know what could he do. What could he do? I feel like he'd have to open the 8th gate immediately once he sees what this guy's capable of, if he even survives long enough to see. I feel like he loses. I love my guy, by the way, but I feel like he'll lose in almost every scenario. I always say this, in an infinite domain of infinite scenarios, he loses most of them. It's just hard for me to see why he would win most of them. Why he'd win most of them, despite he wouldn't. I think there's several ways. One way would be if Pain really wanted to end it quickly, have the Asamal path, kind of do what Kakashi was stuck in the ground, maybe use the animal path and the Asamal path, get him, and use kind of like when Pain was slamming Hinata over and over as she kept trying to remove the chakra rods from Naruto. He would do that to him, just beat the shit out of him. What is he gonna do? He has no ninjutsu, no nothing. He'd be desperate. He'd have to open the 8th gate immediately because he'd slam him, kind of dig him in the ground, and then just have the other path take his soul and it's game over. He's dead. I mean, it's very, very difficult. My guy would almost have to immediately open the 8th gate. He'd have to open it. At that point, Pain would have a hell of a fight on his hands. I mean, that guy would slaughter all the Pains and the animal and the animal summonings. He just slaughter them all. Pain would probably retreat. He'd probably retreat, seeing the sheer power that this guy has. He'd probably throw the weaker paths at him, but the diva path would stay back, and he'd be like, "Holy shit, I can't." Or maybe, I don't know if he'd do this. He'd have to use his Chibaku Tensei, planetary devastation, just right away, get his ass in there and kill him. That's all he could do against the 8th gate, which probably won't happen. Just considering how quick Guy is in the 8th gate, being able to bend space and time, things like that of that nature. So he has that kind of speed. I feel like he would quickly take out the Pains, and Nagato would be like, "Wow, I couldn't deal with this. This guy's just too quick." He's too much of a powerhouse. Excuse me. But all in all, once again, the eighth gate is suicide because you're dead. You're dead. All in all, most likely he's dead. He knows that. He's not going to open it unless he's in desperation. And he's not going to be in desperation coming into that. Pain wouldn't rush the guy right away because he knows nothing of him. So we could safely assume that he wouldn't rush Guy. He'd probably toy with him a little, send the weaker Pains, and then see. Okay, this guy's he's formidable. Then again, he does have the Renegon, so he'd be able to see the Chakra, the Chakra network within Guy. He'd see it deplete slowly because he has an inner gate open, the 7th inner gate. He'd see that, and he'd be like, okay, it's just a time game. But then again, he wouldn't be aware that Guy can open the 8th gate. Would he have the intuition to kind of assume so? Probably. He's a strategic fighter. So he'd see him in the 7th gate once he becomes aware of what this is. And he'd be like, okay, this guy is in the 7th gate. Okay, he's formidable. Let's just blitz him. Let's overwhelm him and let's try to take the soul out of him. I don't want to risk I don't want to have the risk of him opening the 8th gate because I'm not even sure what that's capable of. So I feel like he has enough intuition. Yeah, he knows nothing of him, but he'd test Guy a little bit, and Guy would do the same to him. He'd test him. The thing is, he has no ninjutsu, no shadow clone jutsu, nothing. He's just him. He'd have to do what he can on his own against 6 paths of pain, and it'd be very, very difficult, extremely high difficulty in the 7th gate. And Pain, he would have to take care of him before he opens the 8th gate, and I think that's way more probable and likely than Guy taking care of Pain, especially in the 7th gate. So in an infinite domain of endless possibilities and infinite scenarios, Pain wins most of them. All right. And in the infinite scenarios in which Guy opens the 8th gate, he wins most of those. So let's get that out of the way right now. So if he comes into the fight in the 8th gate, which is just highly, highly unlikely because he'll die. Either way, he'll die. And then he'll still lose because he won't be able to trace Nagato, right? Naruto would have to come down and kind of get a rod and then do what he did with Sage Mode and kind of sense the energy. So in a way, he'd lose, right? And he'd die. So there's that too. He'd die. And obviously Naruto is nowhere near the point where he has, Yin release to revive him. He's dead. He's dead. So yeah, Pain wins most of them. This was a very, very tough fight to kind of grasp on because it's just Guy. There's a lot of unknown with him, in my opinion. 7th gate, we don't know much of it. In the 8th gate is what he did in the 8th gate for the short amount of time that he was in the 8th gate was extremely impressive. But Pain just has all kinds of he has numbers on his side. He has a great arsenal of jutsu, ninjutsu. I just don't see Guy winning in most scenarios. In all reality, he loses. So Pain wins 9.5 out of 10 times with mid to possibly high difficulty. Now that changes if Guy is in the 8th gate. If he's in the 8th gate, he wins probably 9 out of 10 times. Probably 9 out of 10 times with low difficulty, honestly, mid to low. Maybe mid if Diva Path does some crazy stuff, which I doubt. So probably low difficulty, 9 out of 10 times. But yeah, guys, that's my conclusion. I can go all day on this. I really enjoy these. Swag did a splendid job here. This was great. But yeah, guys, thank you for this recommendation as well. Like I said, I always appreciate the input, the suggestions, even the critiques from you guys correcting me. Please correct me if I'm wrong on stuff. I'm trying to learn and become, it's a guy someone that talks Naruto with you guys, kind of imagine that I'm there with you, commentator, and, someone that just discusses this great anime with you. But yeah, guys, that's going to wrap it up. I love you all. Thank you for all the support. We've been growing. You are part of the family. We are a family. And you guys are the reason why I do this, But yeah, guys, I'll catch you in the next one. It's J3 signing out. Peace.